Ready?
Yes.
Hey guys, it's Francesca and today I am demoing at Jerry's Artarama in Tempe, Arizona. I have my setup over here. We're gonna go pick out some stuff. Today I'm going to be painting and I'll be using one of my drawings actually as my reference. I did this study recently this week, so I thought it'd be a great idea to paint it, and I also have the image on my iPad that I'll be using. But let's go ahead and pick out some additional things that we need. Palette knife. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll pick out some flats for the beginning. The bristles will hold on to all of that paint. But what I was thinking is using some longer ones today to really be able to still get that like bounce and everything as well. All right, so grab some transparent oxide yellow. I love using transparent yellow, that way I can still have some transparency in my dark colors. Okay, and then let's go ahead and pick out a panel to paint on. Okay. So, these Da Vinci panels are my favorite. It's right here. I like these because they have a super smooth side. And then there's also a little bit rougher of a side as well that has more of a medium texture. But I really like how the paint lays on it, and yeah, it ends up being really has the good brush retention, I've noticed. Okay.
I think these are pretty good B-roll shots.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna start with Great White. I really like this one. It has good body. Permanent Violet Medium. Ultramarine Blue. Yellow Ochre. Transparent Oxide Yellow. Permanent Red Deep. And Radiant Turquoise and Gamblin. All right, I like this because it's a pretty limited palette, so you can really kind of control your colors and make sure that it doesn't get too muddy. If you ever feel like that's happening, you can really limit your colors down and that will help. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I do have my reference here on my iPad. What I like to do is have it in Procreate, so I have her in there, and I can always go back and forth. I have like a black and white image, and then I also have the colored image. I like to use both of them. So as I'm blocking her in, I'll start with this one. And then today I'm also going to be using my study that I did. So that's kind of a big goal that I have today. I am going to be using the photo, but I want to make sure that I'm going off of this. That way I can use all of the decisions that I made in this drawing onto my painting as well. I tend to do a study of a portrait, and then I will go back to the photo, which is okay, but I feel like I need to be using this as kind of my map and my guide. Again, I've already made some decisions on here, so I might as well use that as my help. So yeah, I'll see how that goes, and I'm excited. I have my whole setup. I like to really have a nice workspace. That way everything's kind of within my reach, so I can have a good workflow as well. So I do have my reference right here, right next to me, so I can keep looking at it. I don't have to move or anything. I have some Soho wipes to stay nice and not messy. We'll see how that goes. I do have my palette paper, which is a Soho palette paper. It is toned, which I like to use. And then we're also gonna be using some stencils as well that are from here at Jerry's. I wanna add some kind of in the background and everything, so it's not just nothingness. I feel like I wanna have more of an environment and really kind of tell a little bit of a story within my background too. And I do like to keep something right next to me that I can have my brushes out and just kind of ready to grab. Just something that works for me. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and mix up a dark color. So I'll mix up my transparent oxide red and ultramarine blue. They are opposite of the color wheel since this transparent oxide red is kind of an orange, so this will mute them together. So I'm gonna just get a good amount going.
That's so deep.
And then I want to have a bit of a purple tone to it. So there's a few things that you could do with that, but I do really like this permanent violet medium from Rembrandt. So I'll get just a little bit of it. If you notice, I'm not grabbing quite as much as I was grabbing with the others. And then that way I can have a little bit of a hue and temperature here. Okay, so I'll go ahead and tone the canvas first. That way it's not on just white. I'm using some mineral spirits in here. Okay, I like to usually have like a paper towel or something right next to me. That way it's part of my workflow. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just get some of this that I made. So if you look, that it's like nice and kind of dark, but I want a little bit more color in here instead of it just being super neutral. Using mineral spirits to kind of move that around. Okay, so now I have like a mid-tone neutral ground going. As I build up all of my colors, you can really intensify the whites, you can go darker, but it's nice to start with a middle tone. I don't always, like for example, on this one I didn't do that. I really just kind of used this part of the background as my tone. So there are different ways to do that. There's no right or wrong in my opinion, but for this, especially sort of the mood and everything with it, it's, you know, she's definitely very emotional. It's very emotionally charged, so I want to make sure that it's not bright and too happy. I want to really kind of relate that and put that into my work. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and kind of start blocking her in a bit. A few things that I like to make sure that I'm doing, I'm not like right up next to it because then you can't see the overall picture. I like to make sure that I am far back. That way I can really see everything going on. I like to kind of compare that to if you go to a movie theater. If you're in the front row, you can see the movie, you can see what's going on, but you're like going everywhere. And if you're like in the middle of the theater or in the back, you can really see the whole movie and have a better experience. So I think it's the same thing when I'm painting too. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm still kind of making sure that I'm gonna be looking at my study that I did as well. I'm also holding the brush in my hand like this as if it was kind of like a, you know, wand or something. Someone at a painting class of mine said that once. He's like, oh, it's like holding a Harry Potter wand. I'm like, I'm gonna use that. I love that. So I'm enveloping her first. So I'm just taking the biggest shape of her, which is the perimeter. And then I want to find my bigger shapes. So there's definitely her hair right there. And I'm not worrying too much about perfection. I'm just kind of laying puzzle pieces in. That way, as I go, I can move it around, but I'm not trying to commit too much right now. I really just want to make a posterized sort of version of her. So I'm just kind of getting everything laid in. And I am wearing a hat to like kind of bounce off and avoid some of the light that's hitting down. So if it's a bright environment, I'll do that. And I'm not really moving my wrist so much as I'm like letting my kind of arm and body be in charge of the movement. And I'm trying to be a little haphazard about, you know, my movement. I don't want it to be perfectly laid. Okay, let's start getting her, starting off with basically her skull. I'm not worried about anything, all the little shapes. I want her whole entire like eye socket in there first. And the light's coming this way, so I don't know, it's pretty evident. You can see the shadow on that side. And I'm just looking for shapes. You know, I know that I'm looking at a face, but I'm more focused on what shapes I'm seeing. Sometimes I forget I'm painting a person. I'm just trying to find the shapes, in the beginning especially. I'm seeing where things kind of line up. I'm constantly looking for angles that line up, plumb lines that are straight. Just constantly observing. And those are things that you can do all the time in life. And so you can tell that I need a little bit more room right here, so I'll use this to wipe it out. I only use this in the very, very beginning. The more I add in, the less that I'll use like a paper towel to wipe out. But in the beginning, I want to get this, also kind of get some of this light out as well, since those are the lightest parts. Back, and it's can already kind of start creating form, even though it's just very basic and abstract right now. If you notice too, everything is pretty linear. I'm not curving anything too much. I like to keep things pretty straight to begin with. And her mouth is slightly open on here, which I think can seem a little scarier than it needs to be when you're painting or drawing. Less is more, so when I am attacking that or going to that, I'm just going to keep it fairly simple, so you don't need to avoid images or references or work that has the mouth open. I think it looks a little bit more compelling sometimes anyway, because we're usually talking, so we're rarely just have our mouths closed like that. So if we have it a little bit open in a painting, it seems a little more organic and natural, like that's, there's conversation potentially going on, or kind of wipe some of that out there, just since this is the light is hitting on this side. Okay, and make sure that I'm looking over here too. I just realized, reminding myself, training myself. And also, this is all within your decision. So if you want to make it where she's even more exaggerated, like, you can definitely have fun with that. And those are great ways to have fun with drawing too, is to play with the emotion. Okay. All right, so I'm just kind of turning the form right now. I added in a lot of stuff, that way I have a lot to work with. I like to keep it a little chaotic in the beginning and let it emerge. That way I have some colors to work with, and yeah. So just turning the form, starting with my dark, working to my light, not worrying about detail though. Just tiling pieces in. Just building up, like right here I filled that whole kind of cheek in for the local color, but then as I'm going I can add, make it lighter slowly so it starts to kind of like come out. And what's your name?
Oh, Jay?
Jay?
Yeah.
Cool. So nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Mostly focusing, you know, on value, not quite as much as temperature right now. But because the temperature I can kind of build on top of it, but
So value first and then go to top, the
yeah.
temperature.
Yeah, you can kind of try to do it at the same time a little bit, but value is more important because yeah, you can still layer value, but it'll be more fresh if you can layer the temperature on top versus the kind of go through and scratch around too. One thing too is that the next to like the face and everything, it's typically pretty warm. So that is like when I'll know that, okay, I always like to have these be a little bit of a warmer area.
Okay.
So I'll just know to grab that. And so I'm using some alizarin for that in this case.
Cast shadow is usually warm color.
Well, anywhere like around the face.
Oh, okay.
And that's actually one of my teachers explained that to me and was saying how, like, you know, the shout out to Jerry Salinas. But like Disney, a lot of their illustrations, you'll see that there's like a lot of red lines that are like around, and it's because that's kind of how it is. Like even looking at you, I can see like a little like red glow like around you, like a little red line, and so I just try to put that in my work, and then if I need to tone it down as I go. And so that's what I was saying. So the alizarin, I'll kind of add that in there and reserve it for just those areas.
So kind of a red color is more like a warm color type.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Because really, it's just wherever there's more like blood. I know that sounds kind of gross, but it's true. We are just made of a bunch of blood and guts.
Ah, the makeup of life.
Yeah. The makeup of life. Okay, all wrapped up today from today's demo at Jerry's. I had a lot of fun, had a great time using my drawing reference for my painting too. And yeah, so I will be back in a couple of weeks and see you at the next one.